Hello, welcome to the GGRated podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gray, along with my friend Matt here. Say hello, Matt.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Gino is out. He is on vacation. He's probably listening to this right now. Hello, Gino. Enjoy your vacation and enjoy this special episode of the GGRated podcast with developer Matt. And let's go ahead and start the show.
Hello, welcome to GGRated. We hope you enjoy the show. Now here are the hosts.
Hello, welcome everybody to the GGRated podcast. So I got my friend here. I'm going to give y'all a little background. First of all, this is, as I've said already about 5 times, the GGRated podcast where we go over tech, gaming, movies, and news. And I have my friend here, Matt. He is a longtime friend who I met actually on a video game. I was playing Star Citizen and I was a newbie. And he actually showed me the ropes on there, and we became friends online and have been kind of speaking back and forth ever since. He's a really good dude, and I'm glad he's on here today. Hello, Matt.
Hello. Yeah, thanks again for having me. Yeah, it's been I guess it's been more years than I realized since we originally, met up there. But
yeah, we met in the verse in the middle of space, and it's been
went on some adventures.
Went on plenty of adventures. I actually have a video. Let me see where that is really quick for everybody watching on YouTube. I'm gonna bring that up of me and Matt playing on Star Citizen. I'm gonna exit that real quick. So we met on there and we got into some shenanigans where like half of our ship exploded. I think the wing got blown off, and I caught a lot of that. I recorded a lot of it. And for those,
Was this one where there's those guys with the carrick and there's that guy buzzing around us, or is this a different time?
I think so. This is one. Here you can tell me. I'm gonna go ahead and play this. I think this might be you looking out of the ship, or this is me. Hold on. Let me bring this up real quick. So, this was us. I think you were flying. That's the what is that? The 300i.
Yep.
And then our wing got blown off.
Oh no.
And
the ship looks bad, dude.
We were having a good time. The game still baffles me how beautiful it is.
Oh man, yeah, I was actually just talking to one of the guys the other day. I was like, man, with the over 10-year development, how it's managed to just keep up.
There's a lot of people that hate on it, but I still have a great time in there.
Oh yeah.
And I think we were doing a bunker mission, and this is us flying around a planet. And that's you in the pilot seat. I'm just back there standing around. And now I don't think you can really do that anymore. You'll fall down if you're back there standing up.
And yeah, if they do too much force, like too many G-forces, they'll knock you down.
And then that's my Avenger Titan, I think. No, that was a hostile one that you had found on a space station. But yeah, that's just a little behind the scenes there of when we used to play some Star Citizen, and we actually still do, just not as often anymore. Where Matt actually started an organization on there, and I joined up, and we're trying to get into some stuff, which we'll eventually do. But anyways,
we'll ramp up.
Yeah,
here in a little bit.
Yeah, but I digress. So I'm getting Matt on here because he's actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. He's a game developer, and he's a but
game
man,
light.
But you can still claim the title of game developer. You've actually done some development on a game. We talked before. You know, have some expertise to share with us about the behind the scenes things that involves and kind of the ins and outs of game development. So I think it's going to be a really good conversation, a really good talk, and we're going to get into it right now. But you know what comes first? Comes first is the gaming moment of the week. This is the moment where we go over our favorite gaming moment from this past week. So we're going to get right into it if I can find the thing. Here it is. Game moment of the week. So I'll just break down mine really quick. I've been hopping back on VR, and I'm just gonna let this play in the background because it looks cool. I've been I've hopped back into VR. Me and Matt have actually played some together. We played that SWAT style game before. What was the name of that?
I think that was Onward.
Onward. Yes, we played Onward together, but I've hopped back into Boneworks VR. And it's a game that I've had a long time, but I didn't ever beat. So I hopped back in there, and I picked back up where I left off, and basically doing some different puzzles and whatnot. But that game, man, like, so the part that I'm at right now, for those of that played, I'm going through these tunnels where you slide down these tunnels, and like enemies, they come out of nowhere, and a bunch of weird stuff is happening. But there was one moment there where, like, I turn around a corner, and you know those guys that are the enemies in that game? They're like these big dummies. They look like maybe giant dolls, or like, you know, I don't know, like zombie type creatures. But they, one dude comes around the corner. He's just there, just kind of hiding, and scares the crap out of me. And you know how it is in VR, dude. It's like, because he's like right there. And there's a lot of moments like that, but that was probably my gaming moment of the week, because you feel the actual like the your whole body is alarmed, because it's like there's an actual enemy there, and you're sitting there trying to reload. I'm trying to put a new magazine in the gun so that I can shoot them. And there's a ton of those moments in that game, but that was the one that stood out to me as my game moment of the week. Boneworks VR.
Onwards. Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on that a little bit and change and go on the VR train. A little while back, Blade and Sorcery, the full release came out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a game I've been on and off for a while, and so of course I got blessed with that release when it came out, and caught me by surprise. I had no idea it had come out. I just happened to click on it in Steam, like, hey, I wonder what, if they've got any posts on this, and they're like, oh yeah, it's out. I'm like, sweet, the day of. So that game, I don't. Have you ever tried it?
No, but I've watched people play it before. That's the one where you can like stab folks and stuff. And
Oh, it's as far as any VR game that's got like magic, that's
oh
the
yeah,
big,
there's
like, that's what
magic
it
in
should
there.
feel like. Oh
Okay,
man.
cool.
So the big thing with that is with the full release came Crystal Hunt, which is the more or less campaign progression playthrough versus just doing sandbox. You level up, earn skills, and all that kind of stuff. But the big thing is there's a boss fight that they added in with this giant. There it is, right there. That big golem.
What,
Doing that in VR, and you can climb and
dude?
scale his body to fight him. It was a
Oh,
little delirious at first.
uh-huh.
It's after you do VR for a while, you kind of get your VR legs, and you kind of
Yeah,
lose that like faux, like, oh, for a second that
dude,
felt real thing. Well, first time I realized you can climb on him, and I'm sitting there hanging on his back, and he starts swinging me around.
bro.
I was like, whoa, like that was my kind of VR immersive moment. And that was just that, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I
there's a little
saw that.
clip of
That
it
was
there.
amazing. So
Yeah, if you
is this
haven't got it, I
running?
highly.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I would say, yeah, if you haven't tried it, I would highly recommend it.
Oh
It's if you're a
man,
VR fan.
dude, I was gonna. So is this running off of your computer, or is this running on the actual like headset? How are you playing it?
So yeah, I'm running a PC VR. They do
Okay.
have the Quest version, which is Blade and Sorcery Nomad, but I don't think the full version is out on that yet. It's
Right.
just the PCR. That's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got a machine that can run it, it's, I mean, hands down better to run it PC.
Bro, I want to climb
But
that
it works.
golem, man.
Oh man, it works great with wireless.
Mm-hmm.
Either using the Oculus or the like Steam VR. Now that they have Steam Link on
Right.
Quest, works perfectly fine.
Yeah, I used to use virtual, what was it called? It was like the back end route you had to go on the Oculus to get it to run.
Oh yeah, virtual
Virtual
desktop.
desktop, that's it. And for some reason I can't get that to work anymore. That used to work really, really well. And now most of the time I'm just wired. Just have it like wired up, going through the Oculus itself, like its own what is it called? Oculus Link or
Yeah,
something
Oculus
like
Link.
that.
hmm
And it still works good, but it's almost like you can run stuff a little smoother through that virtual desktop because it was able to, I don't know if it added extra frames or what kind of magic it did, but it was almost like a smoother experience using virtual desktop.
Yeah, they definitely had some of the kind of networking optimization down when
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff wirelessly. Kind of before, I think Oculus and like Steam Link now that have caught up a bit,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's not as noticeable. But yeah, back in the day, virtual desktop was just like night and day difference,
Yeah.
smoother.
I haven't tried Steam Link itself. Does that work good too?
Yeah, it works. Every now and then I'll have a little bit of weirdness, but usually, it's just like restarting it or something
Cool.
like that. But once I'm going, it seems solid.
So is Blade and Sorcery, is that multiplayer too?
It is not, but there is a mod, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe the mod maker is already working on the one for the full release version. So, there's been a couple videos on YouTube from some guys, that kind of got a sneak peek and got to test it with him.
Uh-huh.
But
That's cool,
I
man.
haven't. Yeah,
I
and
miss
you can do
playing
the.
VR with other people. Like I know it was
Mhm.
kind of neat when we played Onward together back in the day. It was the first time we had it's not like we met each other in person. We like haven't ever done that, but it was almost like we were in person and we were sitting there like, "What's up, man?" We were doing the dabs and everything.
Right.
It was just
Yeah.
really neat. Like it's a awesome experience to play with other people on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been the other kind of VR thing that I've been into is it's called Tactical Assault VR,
Uh-huh.
and it is on I don't know if it's SideQuest or if it's App Lab, what they call it now.
Yeah.
Um, but I've gotten in it. It's like a tactical, well, as it says, tactical shooter kind of thing, CQB kind of thing.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I love games like that. I've been
yeah. So,
playing Ready or Not on and
oh, okay,
off
yeah,
here. And I wish
yeah, very.
like I would love to play a game like that in VR, but that kind of sounds like that's what this game is, huh?
Yeah. This one is for now at least kind of touted as from a gameplay perspective. If you're looking for like a tactical shooter, not just like a run and gun, or
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty on the Quest thing, but like an actual, go in and you're using clearing in CQC, CQB techniques, stuff like that.
Right.
It does that really well.
Oh
But
yeah,
I've
really
got to
does.
meet a few guys. Actually, they have like a kill house, like training, like they do, that training.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they actually have that in there, and I met a guy that is um, in the Air Force. He's a combat controller,
Mm-hmm.
and I just happened to jump in this lobby. He was there. He's like, "Y'all want to like do something? Y'all want to do like a training?" And we're like, "We'll do a training." So we just had this guy run through like CQB training,
Dude.
like virtually, but doing like real CQB training.
Right. How cool is
That's
that?
cool.
That would be
Yeah.
really fun. See, I would get into that, man. That would get me back into VR because with VR, I'll play for like a week and I'm really into it, and then I go back to like flat screen gaming. and I don't really pick it up for a while until something else, kind of tickles my fancy.
Yeah.
But there's another game too. Hey, everybody, welcome to the VR podcast with Matt and Josh. No, but
Yeah, we're just gonna be our episode.
yeah, no, just really quick though. There's another game that I've actually thought about you and how fun it would be to play this game. So, have you ever heard of Escape from Tarkov?
Yeah, I haven't tried it, but I've heard of it.
So, there's a VR game that's like that. That's like Escape from Tarkov, where you go in, you try to get, stuff, loot, and you try to bring it back over to your base. And it's an open world VR shooter. So you'll like meet folks in the world, and it's like when you kill them, you can take all their stuff. And like, I've heard people talk about it online and how it's like more of a visceral experience because you're actually talking to folks, and when they die, they actually lose their stuff. So they're sitting there like, no, man, no, 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 like, don't kill me. So it's kind of that experience inside of VR. And I forget the name of it.
Is it Ghosts of
That's
Tapper?
it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Ghost of Tapper or
Tabor?
Yeah. I want to play that. I'm gonna get it one day. I'm just not quite there yet because I don't play enough. But that's one game when it goes on sale. I'm probably gonna have to pick that up, and it'd be fun to hop in there, man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one that's kind of same thing. It's where if it goes on sale, I might look into it at one point, but I've heard it's good. It's called Into the Radius.
I think I've seen that.
It's also kind of like a looter shooter open world, but it's got a survival and a little bit of a sci-fi twist to it. It's kind of like, one of those apocalypse survival shooters.
Yeah.
Where you're looting and stuff, and there's some kind of I don't know if they're aliens or little anomaly things. Look like little black goo things. But
I want to fight some black goo. I want to shoot some black goo.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how bullets deal with those, but you know what? We'll find out.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, awesome. So that was our game of moments of the week. We're gonna go right into our next segment, which is gaming news and whatnot. How does that sound to you, buddy?
Sounds good to me. I needed a little news update, so I'm here for it.
Let's go into the news. There's not a lot available here. I was kind of skimming that earlier. So there's some news that kind of trumps everything going on right now, and that's that there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And this isn't really a political podcast, but it's like you can't have a podcast the day after that and not mention like that just happened. Today is July 14th, 2024. It happened on the 13th, so yesterday.
Yeah.
So, dude,
it's wild. I mean, I'd say regardless of, wherever you align with just the fact that there was an attempt, at all.
Yeah.
Is wild because it's been, I mean, I can't even think of whenever the last one actually was.
Yeah, and like I've had kind of conversations with some other guys last night about it, about how it's probably happened more often than you think. You just don't hear about it. There's probably been attempts and stuff, or maybe plots and plans, but this is definitely the one that's gone the farthest to where it actually he shot and it nicked his ear. And there's some awesome pictures that just happened. And it isn't awesome. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say, but like the pictures of him with blood on his face and his hand up in the air is like, oh, dude, like instantly I think somebody made a T-shirt out of that.
Yeah, we've already seen, memes and all sorts of stuff, since that. So, yeah, I think the last actual attempt was Reagan back in like 81.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
this is the picture that I think they made a shirt out of. Is that one right there?
Oh, yeah.
Crazy. Freaking crazy.
It's just wild.
Yeah. So, like, we don't have to go deep into it or anything, but I just wanted to mention that of like, hey, actually, at church today, my pastor made sure to mention it, and we uh, prayed about it, and we prayed about the state of our country and just
Right.
everything. Prayed for
Yeah.
him and his family, and also, man, like the family of the person that actually got killed. That I guess when the bullet went by, it struck another guy in the
Mm,
crowd, and it killed one, and I think it injured another one or two people. So horrible event, but goodness gracious, man, what is going on right now?
yeah, I know. It's getting a little hairy out there.
It is, and speaking of Harry, I got something else to show you. I thought this was interesting news. I've heard other people talk about it, but now we are. A computer made out of human brains could solve the world's energy crisis. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Okay, well check this out. I'm excited that I'm going to get your like first reaction of this. So scientists they basically made a computer that runs off of brains, and you can kind of like see here. I'll just kind of read a little bit of it. Swedish scientists have created the world's first living computer that is made out of human brain tissue. It composes of 16 organoids or clumps of brain cells that were grown in a lab, which send information between each other. They work much like a traditional computer chip, sending and receiving signals through the neurons that act like circuits. But what makes them special is that the living machine uses less energy because the living neurons can use over 1 million times less energy than the current digital processors currently used. So basically, I've heard other people talk about this of they feed them. They have to feed the brain like some sort of mixture. I guess
Mhm.
much like we have to feed our brains.
Bra-
But this is some
Brain food,
science
if you will.
fiction. Yeah, brain food. Uh, this is weird, dude. It's weird and kind of
Man,
awesome at the same time. So
yeah. You know what's funny is uh, kind of tying into the gaming culture. Any game that's been sci-fi where there's some kind of like biotechnology, it's always
uh-huh.
the aliens.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
flip it to real life. We're the ones now trying to. That's wild. So the tissue. Okay, so when they say human brain tissue, is it tissue that was created that mimics like human brain, or did they have a sample of like where's the human brain part coming from? Like, did they get cells from you know uh, I don't know where they would have gotten it. Uh, like that's my question is like, okay, are these artificial human brains? So they're not really human, but they're, you know what I mean? Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah. Was it actually grown from an actual human brain that they picked
Yeah, like
off?
right.
Um,
Like where is the original cells or tissue?
let's
And maybe
see.
it goes into
That
that.
that's what I'm kind of scanning for to see like where they got the donor brain from, or how it was grown exactly. I'm not sure. There's a few things here that kind of jump out to me though, where it was saying that the organoids are trained with doses of dopamine when they
Mm.
perform tasks correctly. They get a stream of the chemical as a reward. So they're training this brain with dopamine to
So
do
they're
things
training
that
it
they
like a
want it
dog.
to. Yeah, and
I
so
hear you did it right. Get a treat.
yeah, so but I'm not sure where they actually got the brain. Like they talk about, they have to incubate it in microfluid. There's a
I think
lot
I
of
saw some
technical
little.
jargon here.
I saw a little bit there, a little higher up that talked about some kind of. I don't know if it was a bacteria culture. I think it was above that, above screenshot.
Bacteria.
Yeah, go up a little more. Some one at a
Many
time. So,
brains were built from an estimated 10,000 living neurons.
so after to
Take the
replicate.
stem cells, so they use stem cells. Uh, where'd they get them? Made from they're made from stem cells. So I guess some sort of donor human gave over their stem cells and they made these brains out of it. This is weird,
Huh.
dude. But I don't know how you would like make a brain just out of stem cell.
I wonder if maybe if there was an operation. Surely you couldn't take like from a deceased, like from a morgue where the organ donors,
Mm-hmm.
that have passed. I don't know if it works the same or with the brain. Like if it's, I mean, would it have had to be living? Like maybe if anyone that has any kind of brain operation and there might be any kind of brain tissue that gets cut, if it's a tumor or something, and they can get some stem cells. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I am like zero knowledge in the medical field when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
Right.
this is me just grasping straws trying to understand it.
All that we know is they're making computer brains, man. And
Yeah,
this is crazy. There's
I
those
thought,
two guys. This for some reason this reminds me of RoboCop. So have you seen RoboCop Part 2?
Is that the newer one,
No, that
or is
was
this
like
the original?
so this is the original from back in the day with Peter Weller plays RoboCop. But anyways, on Part 2, they make a bad guy robot and his name is Kane. And they pretty much take out his brain and stuff in his eyes, and he's just in this tank, like sitting there until they put this brain inside of a robot. And that's what this makes me think of. I gotta find that picture because this is funny. It's kind of fitting. Let's see. Kane brain in tank. This should pop up.
Oh, it's a little video.
There
of
it
at
is.
least.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is him in the tank. See if I can find
Like
a
how
picture. Yeah.
they
That's
got the
basically him.
stitches and stuff, giving him angry eyebrows, even as just a brain.
Yeah, that's him. I don't think we're that far away from that to where they're going to be able to put a brain in a tank and kind of like have it alive to use
Man,
for
that's
later
crazy.
uses. Yeah, this is science fiction, man, happening. So if anybody's interested in that, this is on the dailymail.com, and I'm sure you can find it on other places. This kind of goes hand in hand with Neuralink and all the stuff happening with that. How they're making cyborgs, dude. So I thought that would be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, there's been quite a few technological breakthroughs over the last year or so. I think the biggest one, I think that kind of almost kicked it off was you remember the whole nuclear fission breakthrough they had, where they actually were able to do,
I did hear about that.
they, the reaction where they actually got like a net gain on the energy output afterwards.
Yeah, it
which
was
I
like
guess
the
was a big
first time
deal.
that they did it, and I don't think they know exactly how they did it or something like that.
Yeah, they've been trying to recreate it. And I think I saw they did get it a second time. I don't remember
did
if it
they?
was the same results or what, but I thought after that, because everyone's went off and they're like talking about, now that it's been done, once it starts to get figured out, kind of the different ways it could be, what could come from it. But I haven't heard a whole lot since. But it seems like since then there's been, you know, just a snowball of other things. The
Right.
latest now being human robots, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's just like wow,
human brain computers and
yeah,
yeah,
It's-
I'm all for it, man. If they can really figure it out, but it's just like, how is it going to get caught up in the bureaucracy and the back and forth of different companies who want to stay in power and stuff like that?
yeah,
Get
regulations involved and
uh-huh.
All that kind of stuff. Yep. Oh, obviously the AI in recent years being the other big thing.
Uh-huh. AI.
Well, I say that. I mean, AI has been around for a while, but the AI, as most people are familiar with it nowadays.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild. That's gonna be so much content to talk about. Like, there's so many different directions you could take that even right now, just speaking about AI, because lately, have you seen where they'll take these memes and they'll be able to transition from one meme to the other using AI? Like, there's AI that, and we've talked about it on here before, where it can actually make video. And it'll take. I need to show this to you, Matt. This is amazing. Uh, it's
Yeah,
cool to
I've
get
seen
your
some
reaction.
video stuff, but I haven't seen what you're talking about.
So there's an AI where it'll take these different memes that you know about, and it's able to stitch those into a continuous video.
Huh.
Let's see. Let me find it really quick and show it to you. Yeah. Where's it at? So, like, these different memes, like you have the girl in front of the burning house, and you have you have the little kid with his hand up in the air like this. And
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there. Has the whole joke been something about like time travelers?
I don't know. What is that about?
I've been
What's
seeing a
the
lot of.
time
I don't
traveler
know. I've
thing?
been seeing a lot of those videos where they take like shorts, like short videos, that were big things,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like AI extended, so it'll be like
Yes. Something
from a
like
short,
that.
fine, yeah, and then all of a sudden something else happens.
So, like this meme where the dude is looking back at the girl and his girlfriend is looking at him,
Yeah,
AI is able to take that video and add on to it, or able to take that picture and add on to it video to make it like its own thing. But I saw another one where these were able to transition over into the next meme, and it was like one continuous video. But it's just so weird how it's able to fill in the gaps there, and
that's
make
so
just a
weird.
picture of video. Yeah, super weird.
Have you seen any of the clips from? I don't think it's out yet, but OpenAI, they have a video one, and somebody was building a big like studio, like film studio. I don't know if it was someone like Tyler Perry or someone like that. Um, and when they saw video from this, they stopped. They said, "There's no point. By the time this is going to get replaced, and there's no need for it now."
Oh
Um,
wow.
it's wild. Let me see if I can find it. I know it's open. I'm trying to remember what it's called.
So it's like it's making its own movie, and they're saying this is going to replace the whole like studio setting. Is that what you're
It's
talking
like
about?
scenes. Yeah. Okay. It's called Sora. Sora.
Sora, yeah,
It,
we've talked about that before, I think.
yeah. I mean, there's still like artifact, those AI artifacts where you can look, but there's some videos where you're just like, this is just
Text to
completely.
video. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember when it came out, we spoke a little bit about it, but there was one part where there's this dog and it's walking on a window sill, and you can see his actual paw go around the edge. Like the amount of detail that was in it was pretty astounding of how
Yeah.
it was
It's
able to make it.
it's wild. I wanted to mess with it, and then I saw, oh, it's not really available. I think they have a
Right.
few maybe like industry insiders they made it available, but some of them like the prompts, like the realism of it
Mm-hmm.
is like uh stuff where it's like I can't tell that apart from
Right. Like this is
real
AI.
things.
This is some
Yeah,
Sora. And all the only prompt was some dogs in the snow playing, or something like that.
yeah.
Just some
You'll
basic
see stuff
text.
like this where like things will come out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it like kind of gets weird. But if you find like some of the landscape video, like things that are like of like a landscape, or they all have like drone footage or something.
Uh-huh.
Like these like bird's eye view of things. Stuff is just like none of this is real. Like this is all just completely just generated out of
Yeah.
nothing. Like that's
Dude,
obviously.
and it makes me think like how eventually this could transition into video games to where you could play a game like this that looks real. That looks
Oh
like
yeah,
like
yeah. Like
how
that.
crazy would that be?
Like that doesn't look fake.
No, it looks like a drone footage. Basic drone footage.
It's crazy. But yeah, that would be cool to see it in games where the biggest thing I can think of from kind of a development standpoint is being able to create dynamic content
Mm-hmm.
where you have maybe like a framework or something for like, hey, this sec like bumper rails, if you were to kind of
Mm-hmm.
make an analogy, like, but the flexibility to have it generated so it could be a dynamic. So like you talk about replayability on games of like, hey, you come back to the exact same thing
Mm-hmm.
and it could play out different, or characters could be look totally different, and the story could even dynamically change, which
Speaking of
is
that, dude, hold that
wild.
thought. We'll go right into the next segment, which is about game development with Matt and things like that. Let's go right into it. Our main topic on GG Rated.
There we go. Good segue.
So we mentioned Matt before. He's into tech, game development. He's actually, what would you call yourself as far as your
Um,
title?
Professionally,
Yeah.
I'm an MSP engineer, so I
Okay.
work for a managed service company. That we do IT services for our clients. Um, but as anybody in IT, we have our own personal projects that we like to dabble in and get our hands on stuff that we don't get to at work. So development being one of those things.
Yeah, gotcha. And dude, like I want you to finish your thought though on what you were just saying because that was interesting.
Oh, on the dynamic, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of one of those. Again, a little speculative, but trying to apply like, hey, what would be some practical applications of this kind of thing? Because I believe there's also some AI around 3D models,
Mm-hmm.
and doing stuff like that, and AI generated animations. Being able to streamline like there's a lot of tool integration ideas of like, hey, using this to create our animation skeletons and stuff like that, and like bone structures, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But from a kind of a bigger perspective of maybe more on the scripting and story driven side, and just kind of the more the creative side is, if it gets to the point of being able to have dynamic content where um, take like a single player. Talking a little bit before. I've been playing a single player game lately. Those stories are usually pretty linear, so you can go play through it
Mm-hmm.
again and maybe, take a few different paths, but overall you're playing the same story. Whereas if they can tie in something that is using AI generated content that you can have, you go back and play through and you get something that's completely dynamic.
Right.
And a change, and you're like, that's something that I can see if that were to come to be and actually get plausible, it could possibly change, just the whole, I don't want to say the whole business, but the whole mindset, if you can't just as a game developer say, hey, here's a game and it's finished, and like they'll play through it and then they're done with it and they're going to go looking for another game. It's like, well,
Right.
what happens when games start to become, like an event, like, hey, they buy this game and like the amount of playability you get out of it, just,
Right. So it takes that new game plus model to a whole different
yeah,
level of like
exactly. Yeah.
not only is this new game plus, but it's actually like a brand new game all over again. And
Yeah. There's
that would for those different companies that come out with games like that, I would wonder how they would want to monetize that because now it's like
right.
it kind of opens up
Right.
a
Just
whole new world there.
yeah, the kind of long running standard's been what, like around $60 is
Uh-huh.
AAA title. What happens when the expected playtime on that, doubles or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is now do they have to say, hey, people are playing these games because now they can replay them and actually get new content out of it. It's like, now, like I said, this is all speculatory. I don't know if this could ever come to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is anything that, who knows. Uh, but just the concepts behind it is interesting to think about and see, what could be possible with it.
Yeah, and I
Um,
bet that's exciting for you too, as a person who's actually been involved in developing a game. Could you
mm,
talk about kind of what that's been like, starting that process?
yeah. So I've done a little bit of coding, programming here and there on stuff, but never a whole lot. Until a little while back, it kind of started as a text RPG project.
Mm-hmm.
Wanting to kind of do something that like ran in the terminal, just something kind of throwback.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just kind of like grew and grew a little bit, and went into using. I'm trying to think. I think it was called Twine. is the engine. It's like a
Okay.
text thing that runs in your browser. So I started messing with that a little bit, and that started using JavaScript and stuff like that. Um, and then from there, got to the point where like, well, do we want to start adding graphics now? Maybe make it like a 2D top down.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started messing with I don't know if it's pronounced Godot or Godot. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard both. I think Godot is what I hear most people say. So I started messing with that, and that got into a little bit more familiar development environment. Something like, trying to think some of the other more 2D ones, um, but yeah, that project kind of exposed me to the whole developing side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and aside from the just programming side of it, the actual project side of it, and the insight of how these projects, go and be able to understand like, oh, okay, this makes sense why the, patch cycles happen the way they do, and a little bit of understanding the development cycle. Um, so yeah, I guess if you had any questions in that regard, from my humble experience, like I said, not being on a team, being a solo developer, it's
Sure.
fairly limited, but a little bit of insight just to you know
And it's
that kind of thing. If there's any from that,
right, and it's probably a lot. You start to understand like how much of a process it could be to make these big games. That's
oh man,
why they have a whole team, right, of people
oh yeah,
that they all kind of specialize in one thing and try to put this big thing together of all this like string of code and art
hmm
and voiceover work, and to make all that work together is kind of a, a big feat, huh?
oh yeah, yeah, definitely brings a new appreciation to um, even like the project leads and stuff for those type of titles. Of having to maintain those repositories of,
Mm-hmm.
you have all these teams of developers and being able to make sure, all these changes, when they go to commit and stuff and, merge into a branch of making sure,
So now
all
you're
that's
getting into that
organized.
developer lingo where you commit,
Yeah.
and for those that don't know, he's talking about GitHub. So that's
hmm
where everybody that is, doing the code together, they can add on to their main source code, and they can make changes and stuff, and it saves everything. Like, and you can try to correct me if I'm like wrong here, but it'll save every time you ever commit to it, so that you can always go back if there's anything wrong, and like go back to an earlier version.
Yeah, so it's got the commits, and then those commits get generally in like a bigger project, you have somebody who reviews those commits.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, they'll go up, but then they have to be reviewed before they're actually pushed into that branch,
Right.
um, and kind of merged in. And yeah, it can get to be a lot. I guess as solo developer, not so much because I don't have to worry about all these different
Mm-hmm.
branches, coming off. But man, I've seen a couple charts here or there, and I was like, nope. It's above my pay grade right there. Like,
Yeah,
like
I got
maybe
a
if I got
minor
onto
taste
that
of it
space.
when I was going through school, because I went for a like a I have a certificate for like software development, and everything that I've learned, if you don't stay into it, then you kind of lose it, or at least I
Oh
do.
yeah.
So I don't remember a lot of it. We did a lot of like front end and back end stuff, but I remember we all had to
Mhm.
work on a project together, and everybody had to commit into GitHub, and you had to learn to work in the terminal to do all
Mhm.
this, and you have all this code, and at first it's weird how, like, if you ever, I'm sure that you've seen the Matrix, where he's looking at all the code and he's like, oh, I see,
Mhm.
blonde, brunette, redhead. Like, he's able to like read the code, and after a while you can kind of tell what's going on, when before all you see is like this long string of a bunch of garbage.
Gibberish.
Yeah, gibberish. And I think if you go to just a website So you can hit what F12, and you can see
Mhm.
all the code. Um,
Yeah, there's a couple. So you can view the page source. Um, and yeah, you can also hit F12 to open developer tools and see all kinds of stuff. You can see network stuff,
yeah.
source items,
So if you
references.
guys want to know what I'm talking about, just go to a web page and hit F12, and then you can go over to like elements, and you can see all the code and like what they use to actually make the websites.
Hmm.
And you can get just a taste, just a minor taste of what he's talking about as far as coding and those type of things. I mean, we don't have time to go into you know uh, all of the basics of it, but what I'm trying to say is Matt's a pretty smart guy. Uh, he's he's obviously in the field, and um, I've known Matt as long as I've known Matt. He's been a pretty sharp fellow. So it's interesting to hear his take on stuff.
I
Um,
appreciate it. I won't echo it from my end, but if you say so, then
hey man, I say so, bro. But there's also like I'd love to talk a little bit about your experience with the back end of things too. And you were kind of mentioning this, you were mentioning this earlier about Velorin and how you're running a server through.
yeah.
I'd love to hear
Yeah,
some
that
more about
was
that.
for sure. That was a project I did just to kind of get some hands on exactly that, kind of running and implementing the back end behind games. And so, Valorant's an open source project out there. Anyone's available to go and find the GitHub for it, and grab the source code and host it. But it was just something to kind of give me that insight of like, okay, hey, outside of developing a game, what kind of what goes into the backend infrastructure of setting up the servers and setting up the networking and getting everything communicating to where especially in like an online game where multiple people can connect to that, which is a totally different experience versus offline solo player games where they're just running the program and it's just running locally. um so that one was a good, if there's anyone out there that's interested that does the home lab stuff or interested in this kind of project, it's pretty approachable. The documentation's good on it. It's pretty lightweight as well. Doesn't take a whole lot of resources to run. In fact, even if you don't own like a physical server like I do, you can run this in something like VirtualBox or something on your computer. And once you get the networking side set up, you could actually let that just run and act as a server running it. But yeah, if you have any questions really, I don't know how too down the rabbit hole or nerdy in the tech talk you want to go on that infrastructure, but happy to
Dude,
answer any questions.
I could talk about this stuff for a while. Like, but just to kind of sum some stuff up and maybe, what our audience might be interested in is if they wanted to like could you assure the audience of um kind of how available all this stuff is if you did want to go create something, like just to give people the assurance of like, hey, this is very approachable and it looks like a lot, but it's like if you have the drive, all the information is out there for you to learn how to do this. And like kind of your process was with how did you get the motivation and the drive to want to go ahead and learn these tools so that you could go make something? Like
Oh yeah,
what was your process there?
yeah, yeah. It's definitely, the information's out there. If you want it, you just gotta go looking and you'll find it. So for me, a little bit is just my profession, just being in IT, just that ever expanding curiosity and,
Mm-hmm.
yearning to learn. Um, but one thing that I'll say, which kind of ties into some of the stuff we were talking about earlier with the AI stuff, is the AI assistance when it comes to development has definitely come a long way. There are some, I don't want to say pitfalls, but there's, asterisks that go with that of you want to have at least some understanding or do some study so you kind of try to understand why and what's going on, because inevitably it gives you stuff that just doesn't work or doesn't make sense
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And so being able to like take what it spits out with a grain of salt. um but all that aside, if you're somebody that's like, hey, I kind of want to get into it, but I don't really know a whole lot. Like, I don't even like, my biggest problem is getting started. It's like getting
Right.
that initial foothold, that foundation. Like, okay, how do I get something that's at least just in place, and then I can start, iterating on it. Um, I honestly, full disclosure, like I said, I don't claim to be a developer. Uh, Joshua gave me that
I,
title.
I
That's why I
I
said
do,
light.
man, because it's like that's one of the things of like, man, if you started developing a game, you're a developer, dude. Like
I mean,
just because it's not done or whatever, but if you started that process, I think you're a developer.
I'll take it. I'll let you make that claim. I'll say
I
for
will, dude.
any developers out there that's like, oh, he's not a real developer. He did. You know what? You're right. I'm not a real developer. this
Even
is
they had to
this is
start
just
somewhere though. Like
yeah.
it's cool because a lot of times I think when people, I don't know, like maybe do an interview of somebody, it's rare that you find somebody who's just starting the process. And with me, like knowing you and kind of understanding your personality, and I think you're gonna make some amazing things. And you're already in the field, man. To see how quick that you
Mm.
came up with it, and like because like you weren't even in this field for a long time, right? I mean, like just to go, just from what I know about you, you didn't even start this till what, like 3 years ago ish.
Yeah. I'd always kind of been around, computers from like, just building computers
Mm-hmm.
since I got out of school, but never in the IT field,
Right.
per se, until a few years back. Um, kind of got into it. So yeah, at the development side is definitely the newest for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe started that a year ago or so, maybe a little
Right.
bit more. And I've had, various coding and scripting and stuff before. I've dabbled with it on and off, but never like dove in and
Right.
started a project, from the code level. Um, so that helped, I will say. But even if you don't have that, I would say for anyone that's like interested, um, the utilizing some of the tools that are out there, one of them being GitHub Copilot. I know that's a paid one. They do have a trial. And there's a few free alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Just having something like that, even if you just use ChatGPT, if you know what you're trying to do, I would say that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the biggest thing. Know what you want to do, so that way when you work with it, you can try to iterate on like what. But if you're like, I'm say completely new to a language and I don't know how to do, anything. I don't know what the functions are. I don't know how to create a variable, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. It doesn't take long to say, "Hey, I'm doing this in this language. How do I do this?" And it spits something out,
Right.
and you plug it in there. You see what happens, but you can see what's going on, and it doesn't take long to start picking up. It's like, okay, now I start to see what it's doing, and you start to be able to identify. So now when you're asking it for some of those, head start things, you can identify right off the bat. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll put this in there, but I know I'm going to need to change this. And then before long, you're like, okay, now I know how to actually write this type of thing. I know how to make this action happen or this thing happen. And I just maybe need to ask it, more concept questions. And then, it's kind of a way, like a hands-on learning tool
Right. It's
is
like
what I've
having a
found.
teacher there without having to pay for
Right.
it, which
Right. So
is great.
yeah, yeah. So I'd say, I mean, with this whole AI boom of these large language models, that the approachability is definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I again take that with a grain of salt. It's
Yeah.
not an end all solution. You're not going to be able to just like throw something completely at it and it all be flawless. Like you are going to have to,
Yeah.
coax it and then do some stuff on your side. Learn, but
Yeah.
it definitely makes it way more
And
approachable.
that's
I don't think I would have been able to get into it
right.
honestly without, at least
I
not in the
see.
time frame that I have.
Yeah, that's one thing I was trying to say. Like, not that you haven't been into computers and different things. I don't know all of your like history or anything, but just from
Mm.
the outside looking in, me knowing you, like, we don't talk like every day or anything, but to see like every time we would get back in some sort of contact and I would like hear about like what you were doing, there was always something new and always like, oh yeah, like I started developing a game and I'm like, what the crap? Like, dude, when did, and to just see how fast you've progressed has been kind of amazing from the outside in, and to understand like hearing you talk about all these different tools you can use is like, wow,
Hmm.
man, that's really amazing and it's really interesting to hear about, and it's man, it's really really cool, honestly.
Yeah. You might need to have a little bit of ADHD to like hyper focus in on it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that's that may be at play here, but no, it's definitely like if you have the desire, like the tools are now out there that you can definitely self-educate yourself to an extent. Like I said, I still don't claim to be a quote real developer, and I'm sure there's so much that's above my head still. But just being
Mm-hmm.
able to get off the ground with something, just to say like, hey, I have a thing that's actually working to an extent. Like it's doing things. Like
Right.
I'm starting to like, it is something's happening. It's not
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Um, I mean, almost virtually just completely removed any kind of threshold or ceiling to keep people from doing that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'd definitely say don't be afraid to look into that stuff if that's something that anyone's interested in.
Yeah, and you're in the middle of right now. You're not as much into game development. You're in the middle of developing an actual like some sort of software, or
Yeah,
app.
yeah. So it's kind of like a IT management administration platform. So
Uh huh.
it would do something that we call the RMM tool, which is a remote monitoring management tool. So that's what companies like MSPs, but also internal IT departments. It's what they use basically um, remotely, exactly as it says in the name, remotely manage and monitor all the devices, on their
Mm-hmm.
network to make everything from performance to patching and just maintenance of that. Um, but there's a lot of tools. I'm a big open source advocate,
Yeah.
so I'm always messing with open source tools. Um, so there's a lot of tools out there from everything from like documentation and network documentation to network monitoring, which is a little bit different than like system monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
um, to ticketing systems. Someone needs to put in a ticket for something, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I had this idea inspired by a tool called Security Onion, which quick rundown on that is basically just a security tool that combines kind of similar multiple open source security tools under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you just install this one thing and it already has these set up and integrated, kind of streamline that process. And I hadn't seen anything for open source tools that did that on the IT management side for kind of just general. There's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of vendors out there that, do suites that have, oh, we have all this stuff, but it's all proprietary. It's like their
Right.
stuff.
You
And
have to pay
so I
for
had
it
the
every
idea.
month, type of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's a few, I say a few, there's like a couple um, open source RMM tools available.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those have starting to got acquired. Um, so I was like, you know what? I, for me, thinking, side venture that I've got, a business that I'm starting up of, hey, it would be nice to kind of package these tools that, I've discovered along the way that I like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of bring those together and kind of create my own custom RMM and dashboard, but then tie in all these tools and do the
Yeah.
integrations so that way, IT departments or like businesses, especially businesses that get like a new department where they don't have the resources necessarily to
Mm-hmm.
do all this, of being like, hey, here's this, just spin up a server and install this, and everything's set up and it kind of guides you
Wow, dude,
and
that's
it's ready to
cool.
go. So, um, but yeah, I know that was kind of long winded.
No, dude,
uh,
like I'm starting to get it
but
now. I didn't quite understand before, just here, but when you broke it down like that, it's almost like you're creating steps for folks to like rise up in this space. You're actually making steps that folks can take to get these things working and activated for their company or for their platform or whatever. Where
Right.
before it seemed like you had to just do this giant leap of like, I got to get all these things in order. I don't even know like where to start. Where you're making this platform to where it's got these steps for you to take, so that you don't have to make
hmm
this giant leap anymore. Is that kind of it?
Yeah. So kind of the terminology is called a stack or your IT stack.
IT
So
stack.
most
Okay.
people have a stack, and all that means is this is the tools that we use to do our job.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to make an analogy of just like a toolbox, plumber's toolbox or like whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you have your toolkit and you have your different tools. Um, so if I were to follow that analogy, let's say you can get from a vendor, you can go to Milwaukee and buy a complete toolkit that comes with all of their tools, but they're
Mm-hmm.
all their tools. Or you can kind of pick and choose, your own tools and stuff like that. Um, and so what I'm doing is kind of trying to provide that of a toolkit that, hey, it already has all these tools and they've been set up to where they all work together versus you having to pick and choose and stand those up individually,
Mm-hmm.
um, but using the open source options out there. So it's not, these proprietary ones. Um, like it's all built on open source technology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that way it can be, anybody can grab the code if they want to tweak something, as the departments get their hands on it and say, hey, I want to do more. But yeah, it's geared towards trying to be as painless as possible to stand up
Right.
and do all the heavy lifting for you.
All right. So as far as like marketing and everything for it, is there like a name that you came up with or anything?
Um, kind of. So I've got the company I started is Slate Cap IT.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of like my IT business that I'm starting on the side. And so for the platform, I have a project title of Slate Nexus. Um, just kind of
Uh-huh.
honing in on that. Hey, bringing everything together under one spot,
Right.
um, which is kind of the other issue I wanted to address because I even experienced that in my day job of we have all these tools, but generally it's okay, I need to open this over here and open this window over here, and okay,
Right.
now I need to switch over to this. So just having the one application thing that I open up, or if it's browser based, I got this one thing, and then from there I can everything's at arm's reach. I can okay, I need to go review the documents, click, boom, I'm over in the documentation side,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. So trying to bring everything a lot easier to find and
It sounds like you've done
not
a lot of
have
work on the actual like UI experience with
a,
how everything's
a little
operated.
bit. Yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable on the back end development side
Okay.
because coming from my background of networking and just IT, like understanding that, it's a lot easier for me to be like, okay, this needs to communicate to this, and here's how we
Okay.
set this up. The front end development side has definitely been something that is taking a while. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not familiar with the frameworks and stuff like that. So I've got a tool that I've been using. It's called Noodle, but without the
Noodle.
E. Yeah. Um, that's what I'm using for the front end development, and it's
Uh-huh.
kind of like a visual scripting. I don't know if you've seen Blueprint from Unreal Engine or anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
where it's got like the different strings and stuff that go to each
Yeah,
item,
you've
and you
got
can connect them
yeah, you've got
all.
like nodes.
Yeah,
Yeah, little nodes. Yeah, so it's similar concept where you have like nodes that do the logic, and then you just kind of
plug
tell
them
each one and
in.
then tie them together. Yeah, so it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of a visual way, which for me has been helpful to learn because rather than just reading code, I can visualize the way it works.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so cool.
but yeah, it's been a whole experience and learning a new language with that. That one's built on Go or Golang. So that's kind of been the main language I've taken up recently as far as actually diving deep into one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'll see whenever I pick back up on the game project, if that's something that, you know, a lot of that translates or what.
Mm-hmm.
I've toyed with the idea of going back to the tech space because I feel like I was enjoying that a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, and
But
it's cool that you can like do these things at your own pace and kind of do what you enjoy too. Working on more of the business side and then more on the they're both creative, but like more on the gaming side where it's not so serious and just something you're doing
mhm.
for fun. But I'm sure the other one's fun too, but it's something you could more like turn into a business. Is what you're looking at, right? As far as like Slate Cap IT and all that.
Yeah, so that company, like I said, it's kind of startup, kind of some long-term goals in mind with that one.
Sure.
Um, but it's a little limited just because, I do have a daytime job, so I can't really be available during business hours to be
Mm-hmm.
like a business-facing company. Whereas with the development side, I can do that in my own time
Yeah.
and do it whenever. So that's what I kind of started focusing in on that just as a way to like, hey, here's a product I can develop and try to get up to at least at like an alpha release of it, to start getting out there that I don't have to conflict with my full time schedule, and be able to maybe see if I can make that transition with that. But
Right.
it's definitely, like I said when we talked before, there's a lot of parallels that play from developing that platform with the game development,
Mm-hmm.
especially from the project side. It's a lot of it's the same. It's just different topics. Um,
Right. Like
yeah.
hearing you speak though, I imagine this is what I imagine is I imagine you on your way to another planet in Star Citizen, and while you're in travel, like while you're in quantum travel, you're over here on another screen and you're trying to like add stuff to your GitHub or whatever. And then when you get to your planet, you put a pause on this and you go do something else. So does that ever like happen where you're like playing a game and then over here you're doing some like the code, and then you go back over to your game?
I wish. I'm a little too tunnel vision brain
Okay. Yeah.
for that. So like I kind of do the opposite, whereas like once I start in on something, like that's what I'm focusing on,
So you're
and I have to
saying that
remember
you're
to stop and
responsible.
eat.
You're
No,
you're a
uh,
responsible adult. Is that what you're saying?
no, the furthest from it.
That's funny.
No, no, I get hyper focused probably on some stuff where it's just like I get in the zone, like that's what I'm working on, and
That's awesome,
it's
man.
just like a never ending snowball of my brain, like trying to figure something out. And once I figure that out, a new problem. I was like, well, now I got to
Hmm.
figure that out. And
I
so
like it.
I couldn't pull myself away and be like, it would pull me out of the flow, and I'd be like, I can't focus.
Oh,
But
so yeah, so you're getting into that flow state and really enjoying
mhm,
like what you're doing. It's great.
yeah,
I love it,
yeah.
man.
If you're interested, I know this is. I feel like this may come out of left field, but while we were talking about the development,
Hmm.
I think I still have the HTML file for the text version of the little text RPG I was doing.
Yeah,
If you want, I could try to send that to you real
dude,
quick
send it to
in
me.
case you want to share that.
I'd love
Now,
to share that. That'd be
caveat,
awesome. That'd be a
um,
great way to kind of end things of like show what you've been working on and actually display that for everyone to see. Would be cool. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and cut to this. We're actually gonna make this podcast two parts with Matt here. On this one, we went over development and kind of the behind the scenes of him operating in that space. And on this next episode, we're going to actually go over the game, get to test out his game that he made, this text adventure D&D like game. So this is the end of part one, and we look forward to seeing you in part two. Thanks for joining me, Matt. Appreciate it, brother.
yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll catch y'all on the next one on the GG Rated podcast.